Hello, welcome. Happy Friday, everyone. We are here finally at episode 2 of Unmuted. If you're new here today, I am Paige, the host of Unmuted. I am a social impact consultant and an executive coach. I created Unmuted to be a space for female leaders that I have met over my journey of work. And there really wasn't a space where folks were able to engage with them, learn from them, hear from them. And so that was really the impetus of me creating this space. We have 40 incredible women lined up all the way through next June. Today, we're welcoming Jamie Davidoff. I'll give her a chance to speak in just a moment. I wanted to let everybody know, put in the chat, where are you joining from? It's always interesting to see where folks are joining us from. I know Jamie and I are in very different places, which is fun. And just a quick fun fact about Jamie and I met Jamie. She was one of my mentor coaches as I was going through my coaching certification process. And I learned so much from her. The whole reason, we have all of these interviews in the first place. And so I'm excited for you to hear from her today. And I'm totally sure you're also going to have great takeaways from the conversation today. So Jamie, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to take a few moments and share about yourself, and then we'll dive in.
Sounds great, Paige. So firstly, thank you so much for having me here. I feel very honored and I'm delighted to be here with your audience and looking forward to our conversation. I'm really want to give kudos to you for doing this. I think it's beautiful what you're doing, bringing people's voices to benefit your audience and beyond. Just to give a little bit of background about myself, I'm an executive coach and culture strategist. I work primarily with executives and senior leaders in knowledge-based sectors such as tech, engineering, financial services, health sciences, that type of thing, supporting them to gain clarity, create alignment with their teams, broaden their scope and influence, and support their teams themselves and their organizations to make a really positive impact in the world. I do that through 3 kind of buckets of services: executive coaching, a program that I've developed, Executive Edge, and culture strategy initiatives. And my background, just briefly, was an executive in a commercial real estate company 12 years before my 23-year coaching career. And prior to that, 5 years with IBM. So I bring the business education and leadership experience to my clients, along with ongoing training that I do for myself, but also to support them in their learning application.
Love it. I love the background, even, before getting into coaching. We all have such diverse backgrounds. And it's those experiences that really shine, right, in what we show up and how we show up in the coaching space. I love that. All right, should we dive in?
Let's do it.
All right, so our first question, what mindset shift did you have that has shaped the way that you show up as a leader today?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Paige. I thought about this, and it was really simple what came up for me, and I learned it when I first took my own coach training, was the importance of owning my path. And I was in roles where I was a good right-hand person to somebody, but I wasn't leading myself. And I came across very early in my coach training a program that we took called Personal Foundation. And part of that program was to get really clear on our values and how we were living those values, or how we were living out of alignment with those values. And so, I look at that mindset shift as owning the practice of my values, leading from the inside out.
Mm. Tell me more about what you mean when you say leading from the inside out.
Yeah. I think like really leading from a space of integrity of, you know, who I am. Who I am is in part, you know, my values, what's important to me. That's what
Mhm.
values are. How am I actually leading using those values, right? Like from the inside, what's important to me, and how do I lead others in a way that's in integrity with that supports them, versus being externally referred and going, I think this is what a leader's supposed to do, so I'm going to try and mimic that.
Mm. And trusting yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, great catch there. It is about trusting yourself, because it takes a lot of courage to actually practice our values sometimes, given certain situations we could be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Especially women in the leadership space.
Mm, yes. And I mean, you know, we're going decades back here, right? And it was, I would say, even more so then. And I think things have opened up, and there's still things to work through
Mm-hmm.
sometimes for women. But again, I think a lot of that comes from the inside out and our belief in ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm. It's powerful, our belief in ourselves. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Our second question. Um, what risk did you take that changed everything for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like as women leaders, we probably take a series of risks over time. And each one, you know, supports us to build our courage, broaden our comfort zone. And the one that I decided that I would share here is when I left my executive role in commercial real estate to go into my own coaching business. And it was a risk for many different reasons. You know, one, the stability of the known and going into the unknown, going from being more of a corporate employee to being an entrepreneur, and at a time when I had young children and I was also going through a divorce. So there was a lot of transition going on at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, you use the word risk, but I remember people at the time saying to me, boy, that must take a lot of courage to be doing this. And I didn't think of it that way. I just felt like it was a calling, in a sense, like something that I felt really called and pulled to do. And that was very much aligned again with my values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Centering the values are the foundation.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, you started to talk about it a little bit, but what did give you the courage to take those steps, especially during such a big time of transition in your life?
Well, I had heard about coaching about 11 years into that 12-year career from a consultant that I had hired. And she told me she had hired a coach, and I didn't know what that was. This was 24 years ago. And she told me about it. And I couldn't stop thinking about it, because the way she shared it with me, it was about creating win-win-win situations.
Mm.
Like, you know, wins for, like, in a corporate environment, wins for the employees, wins for a team, and then wins for the organization in terms of, you know, if people are living their values in their work and feeling fulfilled and they're feeling more engaged with each other, that's going to create organizational results and impact. And I could see that kind of win-win-win,
Mhm.
that really aligned with who I was and what I like to create. And so I just thought, this is something I want to be doing more of, you know, and with more than one organization. And I really did think it would support me in my role in that executive role, as well. So I started taking the coach training at that time. And I started trying out some of these coaching skills in my role. And I
Mm.
realized that, oh, like, this will lead into the other question, so I won't give too much away. But I realized, that I had been more in leading from a traditional leadership approach, more that top down approach. versus asking more open-ended questions to support people to come up with their own ideas, solutions, path forward with whatever they were working on. And so I felt very called to be in that type of role.
I love that. It was like the calling was enough for you to, take that jump. That's courageous, that you listen to yourself, you listen to your heart. More of that, like trusting your instincts and trusting yourself and your gut. Yeah,
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. Again, it really didn't feel courageous.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Probably
a
felt
stretch
pretty
for sure.
scary.
Sometimes. Yeah.
But, when you have that passion driving you, it's, sometimes like that fear just dissolves away when you feel so called to do something.
Yeah.
But that's where you get the best results, right? When you have folks are in the space that they feel that called to be in, that is, a huge risk, but they're doing it anyway. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. And, the people that we work with in our businesses are going through that as they're stretching and expanding and maybe being promoted into their next role that's uncertain for them. Maybe they're innovating. That takes courage as well. Maybe they're trying to engage external stakeholders that they've not met before. Those types of things can feel quite uncomfortable initially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love how you leaned into it, though. Hey, our third question.
Okay.
Um, what have you had to unlearn in leadership that you were taught?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I mentioned, I think, at some point I was taking more of a traditional leadership approach, thinking I had to have all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that a leader is supposed to have all the answers and then they disseminate those answers or, give the directions, versus being more collaborative, asking more questions, supporting people to learn and grow and work together in a way that's more, I would say, more holistic for them, more engaging for them. And so, as I mentioned, when I started my coach training, I was learning about this approach. And I thought, well, I'm going to try this out. And it was really interesting because it came really the insight came that, wow, like people are used to me telling them what I want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you start shifting your approach as a leader, it takes a bit of time because it's not just you, right? It's the whole dynamic of
Yeah.
you, the team, the organization that that are adjusting and adapting to that new approach.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really interesting. It's the ask versus tell approach, really, in a nutshell. But it's so powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's such a good point that you raise around, it's not just a shift for yourself, but it's a shift for those around you, specifically those you directly lead.
Yeah.
Are there any takeaways there from that process or going through that experience?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a big aha for
Mm,
me. And again, it made a lot of sense though. Like if you're trying to create a win-win-win situation, it does involve everybody. And if you can involve them, you're going to get a lot further ahead in a way that works for more people.
mm-hmm.
I think it supports change management as well. I think it really supports the world we're living in today where there's so much more complexity. Things aren't quite as clear and straightforward as they once were, where maybe that more traditional leadership worked. There's just so many moving pieces, tech, all the different things happening in tech, globalization, all those different things come into play, and it requires a different leadership approach. I took a master's in leadership. This was another little bit of a leap for me when I was in my 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I went back to school, and there were basically three segments of that program. which were leadership of self, leadership of teams and groups, and then leaderships in complexity or in complex adaptive systems. But basically in this world of so many moving interrelated pieces. And it was a little bit ahead of where we're at right now. But it's really come into play now. And you hear that word complexity quite a bit now. And or the phrase navigating complexity. It's really about navigating all these different dynamics at play. Even when you can make one simple decision, the impact and ripple effects that has can be quite profound. So taking a more nuanced approach where many more people are bringing their information into the equation, again, helps the leader see a broader system to make a better decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, key there, making better decisions.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think one of the things that I work with organizations on is their culture, which is how we create results, how we work together. And going back to my initial answer about values, that comes into play with culture.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I'm a certified value-centered consultant, meaning that I've been trained in their values tools and I bring those to my clients. But it all starts with values. Our practiced values through our behaviors are what collectively create the team or organizational culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do a fair bit of work with teams on, how are they operating together based on their own values and their shared values, and what the organization is putting out there is their values and brand.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, that comes down to asking, understanding from that new level of understanding, deciding how are we going to actually practice our values together.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any insight or advice for folks around how they can best identify, let's say, like they're, because we have a lot of values and it's like, well, this and there's 100 of them. How do folks really whittle it down to like, okay, these are my top 5 values that, I always hold, and I show up at work always holding these values, because maybe there's some that you have at home that don't bleed into your workspace. But how do people do that?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, it's helpful to understand what is meant by values. In my world, values are things that are important to an individual. And then we've got organizational values that are often the brand of an organization. And some organizations do a great job of actually finding ways of practicing those values, with their teams. But back to your question around how does a person know what their values are? So first of all, it's really just it's not a perfect process, but it's first trying to understand, like, what are the things that I'll just take me here at this moment, but I want to take you through a little exercise around it as well. And that will demonstrate to others what this could look like. Okay. So values are things that are important to us. So if we were a sailboat, they would be like the wind in our sails, right? When we have the wind in our sails, we're moving forward effortlessly towards, a checkpoint to our destination. But we feel energized when we're practicing those values. When we're not practicing them, or there's some tension around it with another person potentially, or a decision that's being made, we can feel like we're kind of adrift as a sailboat, or in the doldrums, kind of stuck in no man's land, right? Or maybe even feeling like we're resisting, we're going against the wind. So values are really we really want to get them in our sails, right? And that's what values alignment is when we really go, these are the values that are important to me, and I'm going to work on practicing those values through my behaviors, through the decisions I'm making, through how I'm interacting with other people. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great, because it's true that like there are so many things we identify with or hold, but it's important and good practice to be able to make it smaller so that we can carry it around more easily and really like put them into practice. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's different values exercises a person can do. And some of them are that I've seen repeatedly are a list of words to choose from and to really think about what are my values that if somebody saw me without knowing my values, what would they say are my values? Like that's really trying to get honest with yourself, right? Rather than picking values that you're aspiring towards. We first understand.
Aspirational. This is
Yes.
This is who I am now. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's kind of the starting point is, what are my current values? So some words just to describe what values are, right? And there's way more than this, but let's just use these to get started. So I'm looking at my notes, I'm looking down. So integrity, trust, respect, courage, learning, creativity, collaboration, leadership could be one, future generations, wisdom. These are some examples, balance. And there's many more. So often a values exercise will have a page of these words to really choose from. And so when I'm doing this with people, I encourage them to circle the ones that really resonate with them and then narrow it down from there. So some people might know exactly what they are. Some people might go, all of these words apply. It's like, what are the themes in the words that you chose? What are the common threads? And that helps people narrow it down. So then they've got a short list that is, realistic to really work with. I want to say too that values do change over time, depending on life circumstances, our own growth and development. So it's important to kind of revisit those from time to time.
That's a very good point, a good reminder.
Yeah. So the exercise I'm going to take you through could also support values identification here.
Awesome.
So and so I invite everybody listening as well, to quietly go through this as Paige is going through it with me.
Perfect. I was about to ask, is this something folks can do at home?
They can, absolutely. So you ready to do this?
I'm ready.
Okay, Paige. Okay, so I want you to think of a leadership moment recently when you felt proud, energized, or deeply fulfilled. So let me know when you've got one in mind.
Okay. I do.
So what was important to you that was coming to life in that moment or situation?
That I felt that I was as supportive as possible. And in this situation, like to a specific, it was one individual in this specific situation. So for me, it was being as supportive as possible was like my main thought.
What's important to you about being supportive?
Making sure that I'm listening to the person or persons so that I'm hearing what they need for me to actually support them.
It sounds like it's really important that you are supporting them.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that could be a value of yours. It's being supportive.
I would say
what
so.
Resonates. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you think about life and leadership, how does that value of being supportive show up?
Oh my goodness. I love this because I went through my Essence Energy exercise recently, and it was sparkling care. And that care, it was like, I didn't want to use the word support because it was too alliterative. But it's that. It really is in me. Ask me the question again because now I got off track.
How does that value of sparkling care, let's call it, show up in life and in leadership.
Right. I think it really is at the core of who I am. So whether it's me being a mom, and supporting my kids, whether it's something I want to or not, it's like I believe in supporting them. Or when I work in collaboration with other consultants or when I work with my clients, my main thing is always to be, even with other collaborations, I really like to work like this and not necessarily in a hierarchy, because then I feel like we can be most supportive of each other. So I think it's really at the center of how I function. I don't know if I even realized that so much until this conversation. Jamie, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, I mean, I'm hearing you, and I know our time's winding down here, but
Oh,
I'm, that's the thing about being aware of our values.
mhm.
We can then go, if this is truly that important to me, how am I actually living that in all areas of my life? And if I'm not living in alignment with it, what's that costing me in terms of my energy and the feeling of being in integrity, walking my talk with my values? And so then we can start working on that to close the gap. So we are more energized. And so the wind in our sails is pulling us forward with a much less effort. And we're also building trust with others because we're acting based on what we say is important to us. So thank you for playing.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for asking me to play. I think too, it's really powerful, the analogy to the sailboat. When you say like the wind in your sails, those values, and when I think about that ease that brings to folks, because it is really pushing you, right? I just, we see the struggles for folks and for teams and for leaders. And to really like just taking a few moments, take an hour and a half with your team, to talk about values, to work through values, take a few minutes in your opening, icebreaker, or, whatever you call it in your staff meeting, to talk about values. Or if you don't have them for your organization, start to think about what they may be. Because, like Jamie said, it really centers everything. It really is the foundation of so many things. And for leaders to be able to move forward more easily and to progress whatever it is, they're working on, whether it's their mission, themselves, their teams, with more ease and joy, that was incredible, with just a little bit of values work.
It can really ripple out again and create those win-win-wins.
Yeah, the ripple effect, because then you're right, you're impacting the other folks around you as well, and really encouraging them to stretch and modeling that leadership that you're embodying and practicing, and folks are seeing that is very powerful.
Absolutely. Well, again, I mean, it's the values and the practice of them. Brene Brown talks about taking those corporate values and taking them from professed to practiced.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of values out there, but people are busy. There's lots going on, and sometimes we can lose sight. So, like you said, bringing this up in team meetings, keeping it alive, really supports that collaborative work together.
Yeah, keeping it alive. I love that, because then it's actionable. When something's alive, when it's dead and you're just dragging it along, it's hard to put that into action. But when it's something that you're bought into, you believe in, you value, and you see, the impact it can have, not just for you as a person, but for your team, your organization, your company, there's a lot of power behind that.
Mm-hmm.
Much more easy to put it into action. I think too, consistency is the other thing. It's easy to do things one or two times. And then all of a sudden there's a fire that needs to be put out. But, going back to those and recentering yourself is always good.
It's definitely a practice. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Practice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have just a few seconds left of our time together. I want to thank you so much for being here, for taking the time, for our guests. I see some folks posted in the chat. We have people from all over the country, which is super exciting. Glad y'all could join and hear from Jamie. if you'd like to get in touch with her or check her out, here is her website. And you can find her on LinkedIn as well, and just stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Paige. It's been an honor.